Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Bud Elliott. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and everywhere you get your podcasts on demand. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat, a.k.a. the Cover 3 Tailgate, where compliments are there for Tom. Because, Tom, what had happened on that pivotal Texas turnover at the end of the game? Was that a red zone possession?
Yeah, it was. Texas had a 1st and goal at the 1 after a couple pass interferences, and they couldn't get 3 feet.
Yeah. And look, we're not going to rub this in, but I'm just telling you what is in the Cover 3 tailgate right now, which is some compliments for Tom. So final score, Ohio State 28, Texas 14. The Buckeyes advance to the national championship game. They will be in the national championship game for the first time since the 2020 season, looking to win the national championship for the first time since 2014. A little, I don't know how much they mentioned this on the broadcast, but there's certainly something that is going to be a little fun to talk about, the opportunity that's ahead for Ohio State, the first winner of the college football playoff in the 4-team model, the potential to be the first winner of the college football playoff in the 12-team model. That group in the 4-team model was discounted. They entered as the 4 seed. They kind of snuck their way into it. Then they caught fire and they rolled to a national championship. This group, I would not say discounted, though they were the 8 seed in the bracket. They're coming out of the loss to Michigan. They catch fire. We'll dissect whether we can say this is continued that catching fire, but the narrative as a whole, the idea that this Buckeyes team, once again, not the favorite going into the playoff, yet finds themselves with a chance to win it all. That game against Notre Dame, January 20th in Atlanta. Lots to get to from the game itself. Bud, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you know what record Jack Sawyer set?
Longest defensive touchdown or something for Ohio State?
Longest fumble return touchdown in college football playoff history.
Okay.
Do you know what?
Longest 80-yard return in history due to time.
Do you know what the previous record was for the longest fumble return touchdown in college football playoff history?
Ooh.
It was the Jameis fumble.
Yes.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. Oh. They came out, in the press box, they'll come over and they'll always give you little factoids, little reads and records. And it's the previous record was Oregon's Tony Washington in the Rose Bowl. And I was like, oh, that play. So Jack Sawyer making a little bit of history as well. We had been talking about Jack Sawyer ever since the playoffs started because of my memory of him losing his mind after Michigan did that flag plant. Such an important part of this team. He ends up with the biggest touchdown for the Buckeyes. What do you think was impressed you? Let's go positives first, and then we can start to do the negatives, because I don't think this was a great game. I think it was a great finish. I don't know if it was a great game, but what impressed you about what Ohio State did to be able to get the win?
I thought they kept finding answers down the stretch, but ultimately, they were able to sit in and clamp what Texas was doing offensively, down the stretch, and Texas moved the ball into the red zone. As Tom said, they were able to bow up in the red zone. I thought Texas did a really nice job in this game, using some of the formation stuff like we talked about, like last night. And shout out to everybody who braved the snow, to come see us there on the Cover 3 podcast live show from Tannehill's.
Was that last night?
Yeah, it feels like a long time ago, doesn't it?
We've been on a run. I think Texas did a great job of kind of formationing the Ohio State defense to kind of get a better feel for what the look was going to be. And if you look at that's really how they did it on the 2 rail route shots to Blue. And ultimately, in the red zone, they were not able to do that quite as well. To Tom's point, they really bowed up pretty well in the red zone. So I was impressed with that. I like they kept they kept going back to the run game later, but they mixed it up better. In the second half, you could tell Ohio State was bound and determined to take big shots on first down quite a bit. And they were throwing the ball on first down a lot. And Herbstreit, I thought, did a great job pointing this out. He's like, hey, they threw 5 or 6 passes here to start the drive over and over again. But then they came back, with Henderson, with Judkins, ultimately with Howard, fresh legs, right, Tom? on Howard, and I thought they did a good job with that. Hopefully, they have so many difference makers on that team. Eventually, guys step up. Sawyer stepped up. We saw Downs get the pick to end it. That was a really good effort from Texas. And Ohio State still won and covered.
I feel like it was an odd game in that there was never a great flow for either team. Like Ohio State started out on fire. They got the stop on the opening possession, which is like, Herbie and Fowler were talking about how Sark was renowned for his scripts opening games across the coaching universe. And then they stopped the script. Like they got the stop, and that's huge typically against Texas. And then they go right down the field and score. Stop Texas again. They get the ball back, and it seems like they're going down the field to score again. But then you get the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty on Trevion that kind of derails the drive. And then that kind of became the theme for Ohio State's offense the rest of the first half. There was the unsportsmanlike, there was a holding, there was a false start that just kind of kept moving them back and killing their drives. And I felt like the offensive line, it was their worst performance since Michigan. Like they looked great in the first couple of playoff games, but the Texas defensive front got off to somewhat of a slow start, but kind of settled in and started playing really well, giving them all sorts of problems, causing some of those penalties and, the false start. And just, it was looking really sketchy there for a while before they kind of regained their footing again on that one drive when they just went big boy and marched down the field. But I did feel like for a large portion of the game, Ohio State was doing a better job stopping Ohio State than Texas was. And then Texas began to be the team that stopped Ohio State.
The penalties were horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the mistakes that were coming like throughout, it felt like Ohio State was leading by 15 and they were up 7-0. I mean, there were so many spots where they just allowed Texas to hang around in this game. And then it felt like Texas was going to win. Like just vibes wise, they had everything rolling. Ohio State was coming unglued. And then you mentioned it, the big boy drive, the fourth down run, the good call. We agree. Mm-hmm. Will Howard, let him go out there and make the play. They finish it off with the touchdown. That was a great response from the Buckeyes in that spot. What about Tom? What about the Texas side of it?
It's so repetitive. We've said it so many times. It's with Quinn, slants, screens, and then tonight some wheels. Just some little floater throws that he's able to make. He looks wonderful, but there were so many other throws where he was just so off. And there was the one throw like that Bond just flat dropped. That throw was fine. Bond just decided I'm going to jump for some reason to try to catch this thing, and then he completely threw off his timing on it and dropped the ball. But there were so many throws he made that were just off. Like they were long, they were short, they were wide. It was just his accuracy was not there on a lot of them. He was very skittish in the pocket early. Like some of those sacks he walked right into.
Yeah.
Because Williams was getting killed all night. Like you could tell he was out there, he was playing, but he was not 100% or close to it because he couldn't really move. And Jack Sawyer was just going off on him the entire game. And then you saw also like Banks was struggling early with JTT. JTT got hurt, left the game for a while. Banks got his stuff together, started playing better. And then for the rest of the night, JTT did make some plays, but I feel like the other four kind of started playing much better, whereas Williams was struggling the entire night. And you could see like Quinn was just, every time he would drop back, he'd hit that third step and he would just be feeling the pressure from Sawyer, whether it was actually there or not. And he was just kind of stepping up sometimes into where the pressure actually was. But I think sometimes Texas gets in its own way with the play calls. I think that like they do such a good job, like you were touching on, Bud, going into different formations early, trying to figure out what you're in and make you declare yourself before the snap so that way they know what the answer is. But then I think sometimes they just need to stick to the basics and they keep doing that. It's like we saw the 2 touchdowns they scored were the same play. Like that play was working. The way that Ohio State was defending you, they were leaving linebackers on blue. That's not going to work because
or a defensive lineman when they blitz and all of a sudden it's Tyleek Williams one-on-one against Jaden Blue. You're not going to win that.
Yeah, there's not a lot of dudes that playing linebacker, defensive line who are going to cover Jaden Blue in the open field. So like you could have leaned on that more. A lot of the plays that were working, like you had Wisner started going off in the second half, just getting like not big yards. He was getting 3, 4, 5 yards at a time and just kind of helping you move the ball. You went away from that. So I think Texas kind of hurt itself a little bit in the play calling, and I'm well on the record. I love Steve Sarkisian. I think he's a terrific play caller. They talked about it on the broadcast, how great he is putting scripts together. I just think in the second half, they thought a little too much instead of just sticking to the bread and butter.
I thought Texas was on the right side of a lot of not lucky plays, but very on the margins plays that went right for them in this game. Quinn getting rid of the ball, when he did. Arch not fumbling, just being down.
They also recovered some fumbles early in the game.
Yeah.
They were had positive fumble luck.
And then they get caught in a bad spot on the Travion Henderson screen pass right before the half. That was a huge difference in this game. They won by 14, but really it was kind of the two explosive plays there. It was the Henderson catch and run on the screen, and it was the Sawyer fumble 6. That's kind of the deal there. I do think, to Tom's point, should you be running that pitch there on the goal line? Part of me says no, because if it gets hit, it really kills your drive. The problem is if they know you won't run it, then they play you differently.
And the other thing too, we could question that call. The fact is that call probably works if Caleb Downs doesn't shoot that gap and just force him out further wide. Because if Caleb Downs doesn't get through there and diagnose that right away, that play probably scores.
Yeah, I mean, it was number 2, and I thought he was going to get him. I mean, I was even amazed that he wasn't dropped behind the line to scrimmage, just based on the way he hit that. This is going to be a tough one to swallow for Texas fans. That's for damn sure on this one.
If you're a Texas fan, you're pretty happy with the season, though, right? You made the Final Four again. Yeah. You clearly survived your SEC maiden voyage, and that's. I think you got to be pretty happy with this. Week to week, they were a pretty damn good team to watch.
Where, what do you make of the Jeremiah Smith absence?
I thought that their plan to me on defense, I love what Texas did. I thought that it looked a lot like the Michigan plan, which was we're going to play a lot of guys back, keep everything in front of us, see if our front can win. I thought they did a nice job of creating confusion for Ohio State's offensive line that allowed the backers to have some run free. That's probably the first time we've really seen somebody do that to Ohio State since Michigan. And they did it without having to have a lot of extra personnel actually up there. So Jeremiah is just a better guy against man coverage right now, than he is against zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Texas plays a lot more zone. That's more an Igbuka thing. Igbuka had 4 catches in the opening drive.
Yeah.
And then they went to Tate a bunch.
I mean, Carnell Tate had a career high for targets. He might have had a career high for catches. It was very obvious. Middle of the field was open because they were trying so much to take care of everything that was going on the perimeter. You ended up getting G. Scott. Shout out to Tom's over right there. Even the was it Casper? Even the other tight end got a couple catches in there. I mean, it was very much we are going to let all of the other pass catchers not named Jeremiah Smith beat us. And look, 370 yards of offense for a team that averaged 425 on the season. You held them to 28 points, and one of those was a defensive score. It was a pretty good game plan along the way for Texas's defense.
Yeah, and I would also argue too, I don't think Ohio State really minded that much that they were so focused on taking Smith out. I think they were happy. They were like, okay, if you're going to use 2 guys to just kind of take one of our guys out, we'll beat you in other ways. And like I said earlier, I think Ohio State for a lot of period of this game was its own worst enemy with the penalties, just kind of derailing drives. I thought that overall, especially early in the game, man, Will Howard was getting everything he wanted. Now, there were some terrifying throws that he was making over the middle that could have gone easily in the other direction and been game destroyers, but they didn't. He completed them, and it led to the opening touchdown. But Igbuka was feasting early in the game, and they were happy to go with Carnell Tate. So that's the nice thing about having all that talent that they have at that position. It's okay, you take Jeremiah Smith away, we'll go to the other guys. We'll use our running backs in the passing game. We'll get 75-yard touchdowns right before halftime. They're a really difficult team to stop, which is what we kind of talked about last night during the live show. It's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, because you either leave him in single coverage and live with that, or you focus your attention on him and you have to live with what everybody else on that team can do. And I mean, you take away that fumble recovery, they only had 21 points on offense. So Texas's defense deserves plenty of credit for doing as good of a job as really realistically anybody can do on them, but they still ended up winning the game. Your game plan won, and they still ended up winning the game.
Let's take a look. We got Nick says, Texas fan here. I am okay with the loss. It sucks. We were doubted all year, but this season was a success for the most part. We got Canadian Longhorn chiming in. We didn't get blown out tonight. That was great, but the last sequence on the 1 yard line was sad. Run the dang ball for 1 effing yard. So they're making their thoughts, and then we've got some looks ahead. We'll do that here in just a little bit. Looking ahead to that national championship game matchup. What any other sort of like game related thoughts coming out of tonight?
I just think that like those Ohio State backs are really good, and they both look super fresh. That's just different. Like nobody else has that right now.
Would you have played Arch at the very end?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would have played Arch in the red zone all damn season. I wrote a column about it a month and a half ago. They just didn't. Like, they used him on the 4th and short, and guess what? It worked. You should have used him on the goal line, too. It might have worked. I don't know. Another takeaway for me watching this game was, like, Chip, you mentioned it. You were there. Like, Bond was nothing but a decoy.
Yep.
Except for that one play. But outside of Bond, unless it was like schemed open via an RPO or a screen, Texas's receivers, like I was watching the Skycast broadcast for most of this game, they really weren't getting open. And that was a problem for them. Like Quinn, when they did get open, missed them, but they weren't getting a whole lot of separation most of the night.
I thought he was late on a lot of stuff. Like especially the one ball where it's open, it's almost picked, like because the receiver has to jump for it. He's open for a couple seconds. I don't know. Like I'm curious to go back and watch the Skycam view because I felt like, and I thought they were open some, but I don't know. I'm not. I don't hate my take that Ewers is QB4 in the Final Four.
That's true. I mean, I made that argument, and
granted, Drew Aller last night didn't really play awesome.
No, he did not.
No. All right, we got a lot of questions about it, including how about this? Where is Quinn Ewers playing in 2025, and what does the matchup look like for the national championship game between Ohio State and Notre Dame? All that and more next. I'm just gonna have to get real intimate here. I hope that's okay. This is what you're gonna get right here.
What's going on behind you there?
Huh? Well, I'm trying to mask as much of the sound as possible. You know, this is what I do for the people right here. All right. So, where is Quinn Ewers playing football next year?
Ooh, he said he's going to be in the NFL.
Do you buy that?
Do you buy that?
I mean, I don't think he loses anything by saying it.
Carson Beck said he was going to be in the NFL, and then
but I'm also wondering, like that Miami thing happened pretty damn quick, and Miami had been kind of playing footsie with Quinn. They might have gotten an answer, and then they just pivoted to Carson Beck.
He's a great player, great individual, great person.
I mean, look, what?
Like you said, we were roommates when I was up at
Georgia, Notre Dame, UNC, Oregon.
Georgia, Notre Dame, UNC, Oregon. So you have thought about this?
Yeah.
Do you really think
those would be my guesses?
And he's going to be he's going to command a lot.
Yeah,
he's just so experienced. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like, man, I don't know the price of playing poker for quarterbacks, but it seems like the kind of table that I'd walk by at Harrah's and be like, no thanks, I'm gonna go play video poker.
Here come the Oregon fans say they have Dante Moore. I know they have Dante Moore. Okay, right? Like, I think they were also. There's been a lot of other quarterbacks that I think they've had some interest in. Okay, who decided to stay, including one who almost beat Texas last week. So, I mean, yeah, Dante Moore might be great. I guarantee you, these schools all like they do their due diligence. They do.
I do wonder if Notre Dame's ready to ride with Angeli and Carr, though. I think they could win with Angeli.
Yes.
If possible.
I mean, 6 for 7 when he comes in the game. He was really, really good. What do you all right, so let's go ahead and let's advance this. So how do you see, Tom, how do you see the matchup? What are going to be the most important matchup points off the top of your head looking at Ohio State, Notre Dame, as we get a renewal of the Lou Holtz rivalry? Because I want to know where Lou Holtz is at right now. I want to know what he's thinking about the matchup with Ryan Day and those Ohio State Buckeyes.
Notre Dame suffered how many more injuries on their offensive line last night? We've got 10 days until the next game. So who knows how healthy those guys will be by the time the game comes around. But Notre Dame's they've been banged up on the offensive line all year. They're getting more banged up on their offensive line. Now they've got to face Ohio State. Defensively, they've been banged up on their defensive line. Now they've got to face Ohio State. They've lost Benjamin Morrison earlier in the season, one of the best corners in the country. They've been able to get by without him. But now they've got to play Ohio State. It's one of those things where it's like at full strength, I think Notre Dame would have a pretty damn good chance in this game. In their current condition, I don't like their odds, but to their credit, they've been dealing with these conditions for a while and they've been overcoming them the entire time. So I can't rule it out, but just looking at the current situation of their injury report going up against the Buckeyes, I don't feel optimistic. And then there's the other side where it's like on offense, if you're one-dimensional against Ohio State, how is that going to work out for you? Michigan won, but it's not like they put on an offensive clinic in that game. So I don't know. Can Notre Dame Michigan them? Yeah. Will they? I don't know. Got him. Don't have the graphic though.
Oh, we don't have the drop. Okay. Look, the implied.
We do have it.
Your implied score from the opening line is like 27-17. 17 feels high to me for the Irish. Texas just scored 14. Oregon scored 8 before garbage time.
Yeah, we've got our guy Jeff. He says going to be a boring game where both quarterbacks power run 15 times, 17-10 Irish.
What's the spread? 9.5.
That's probably what it needs to be if they're going to win the game. I think there is some chance that Notre Dame's defense could do what Texas was able to do to this Ohio State offense. Like Ohio State offense is really good, but it's not like that Joe Burrow offense, right? It's not like the Jameis Knoll. It's not like, hey, everybody on this offense is going pro no matter what. And like, Howard's not a generational type quarterback. But I don't really know how Notre Dame scores enough in this ballgame.
I do like this possible prop.
This is the worst offensive line that Ohio State will have faced, right?
At this point,
I would take Tennessee over this current injured version of Notre Dame. I would definitely take Oregon. I would definitely take Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to be so invested in any injury updates coming out of South Bend for the next 10 days. Like it's going to be so.
Jagasaw played pretty well.
He did.
Yeah, he came back and he played well, and that's going to be really important.
But who's replacing that?
We're getting deep on that depth chart, man.
Yeah, that was an issue.
Yeah, I don't know the names of the third and fourth string.
Do you think that Notre Dame can put in the kind of plan to slow Jeremiah Smith, or do you think he'll have a bounce back?
I think they can. It's just, again, it's one of those situations. How many guys do you want to, assign to him, dedicate to him, to taking him away and taking away the balls over the top and just making him, do those little hitches where maybe you can drop a defensive end into coverage and pick him off. It's the question that they got to figure out what they think is best for him. And there's no right answer. You just got to do what you can think you can get away with and hope other people can do their job and make plays.
I mean, I think it's fun because 0 wide receivers had catches in the last time that Notre Dame's defense was out there. Obviously, that was a Penn State thing as well. but at least that is something to consider along the way.
Yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, look, Notre Dame can win the game, but Ohio State has to really come back to earth a lot more than they did tonight.
All right. Any other initial thoughts about that matchup?
I bet the TV ratings are good.
Bernie says Lou Holtz should lead the Irish out of the tunnel.
Might take them a while to get out, Bernie. They might have to delay the game by a few minutes, waiting for Lou to lead them out.
Do we like doing the coin toss where it's like Texas on one side, Ohio State's on the other? Of the coin.
I didn't know there were strong takes about that.
Well, like you don't have to call it, right? Like there's no.
Oh, so you take the autonomy out of the process. It's just
basically.
fate at that point. Wow, I don't know. That is a philosophical question. I'm not sure I'm ready to get into right now.
Not right now. Not at this hour. I tell you what, there is. We had semifinals with the number 3, 4, 5, and 6 teams in the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to have a team that is going to be the national champion who entered a 12-team playoff in the top half of the competitors. If we actually looked at, the seeding, I think that we will have either an Ohio State team who finally validates the roster and the talent and the investment that they had in Columbus, or we have a Notre Dame team that runs like a miracle make a movie about it type run with everything that they've done, overcoming all the adversity, all the comebacks, all the breaks they got along the way. Either way, I mean, Marcus Freeman against his alma mater. There's just a lot to like about it. I'm still, you talk about the ratings, but I just think conversation-wise, the Ohio State Notre Dame should be really, really good.
Oh my God! Shout out to Gigi who just brought up the biggest storyline of the matchup. I completely forgot. Oh, where'd it go?
Oh, that's right.
We got to talk to Brady. We got to figure out what's going on.
Yeah, we've got to get the split.
We got to get Brady to wear it.
Yeah, we got to get Brady to wear the split jersey.
Do our young listeners know about this?
We'll save that for because we'll have photos, we'll have art, we'll have ways to be able. Yeah, it was a Fiesta Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Thank you once again to everybody who came out to the live show. Thanks to everybody who tuned in and watched it. We had a lot of people who came up to me and were like, I checked it out. I was watching it on YouTube. Sorry I couldn't make it over. But, even people here at the game, they were supportive. And so I can't wait to continue to bring the Cover 3 podcast to you wherever we can, whenever we can, because we do enjoy it. Any other final words?
No. Excited to see what Notre Dame can do here.
10 days left in the season, boys.
Both semifinals kicked ass. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, I would agree. I would say that the finish was great. The drama was great. There was about like an hour of real time where I was like, man, this is kind of a slog. But it came with a great finish and an all-time ending with a record-setting fumble return touchdown by Jack Sawyer. So congrats to you. And you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow me at Chip _Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See y'all.